To speak with us today about how agencies and teams can secure their cloud operations is Garrett Lee. He is Regional Vice President for Public Sector at Broadcom's Enterprise Security Group. So thanks so much for joining me, Garrett.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So the cloud offers really great opportunities for government agencies and teams, but it also does pose security risks. Lay the groundwork for me. How are cloud service providers falling victim to cyber attacks recently?
Sure, no problem. And we're seeing this for sure. I mean, agencies and organizations rush to cloud to take advantage of the operational efficiencies that they believe they can provide. Yet some of the same security concerns persist in that environment, and some others are introduced. In solving one problem, often we identify additional complexity and additional challenges in life. Same is proven to be true here. So what we see is misconfigurations causing problems. Poorly secured storage buckets are a good example, allowing access that's unwanted. Weak identity and access management policies we're seeing also causing unwanted access to sensitive data in the cloud, as well as vulnerabilities of the cloud applications and infrastructure themselves, as well as malware. Attackers are exploiting these vulnerabilities to gain access to sensitive data, to disrupt services, and to conduct fraudulent transactions, deploy ransomware. And the consequences of these attacks, when you consider the federal mission and the sensitivity of the data that they operate, those data breaches can be pretty steep in consequences. And again, service disruptions to public services, to mission impact, pretty significant.
Even when government agencies know that this is a problem, why is it so hard for them to fortify their cloud protections? Why is it a challenge?
Well, first, the requirements are steep. Yeah, as I mentioned before, the stakes are high on the sensitivity of the data itself, but agencies have to comply with stringent regulations related to data privacy, to security, to information management, how that data is stored and managed. So that means they need a really robust framework to put continuous monitoring in place. All of this while managing the complexities of a cloud environment. That's a pretty significant challenge. So add to that the traditional challenges that security teams and IT teams face, like legacy systems, limited budgets, and that one's huge in this context, as well as the need for a skilled labor force. So ensuring that all those control points are managed while handling an explosion of data. So protecting that sensitive data from cyber attacks is a major concern. Cloud again, solves some problems, but it also creates some others. So this means they have to implement access controls. That's a challenge. Addressing insider threats. They have to manage vulnerabilities in the cloud infrastructure itself. So it has unfolded considerable complexity for them.
What's the high level solution? What's the overall way that agencies can secure their cloud platforms from nation states, but other bad guys, other threats?
Well, first, I guess, like everyone's going to say there's no magic bullet. And it's true. There is no magic bullet here. It's going to require consistent effort to thwart the efforts of nation states, other malicious actors. So a holistic approach to security that combines security controls, policies, and procedures, things like encryption, the basics, right? Encryption, strong access control, regular updates and patching, that kind of hygiene, security automation, an extensive incident response plan. These are also critical in cloud environments to protect against advanced attacks. Additionally, the advent of AI and what we're seeing that has democratized pretty sophisticated attacks is also a concern that the target is going to be where the good data is. And if it's in cloud and if it's further from your control, that's a concern. So additionally, understanding the shared services, shared responsibility model with each CSP is important. So that maps out what controls are provided by the cloud service provider and what would be responsibility of the agency to avoid gaps. So the basics still apply as the net, right? Zero trust, data protection strategy with robust data loss prevention to make sure you're really safeguarding the data, micro segmentation to limit the opportunity, as well as strong threat and incident response. Those are what we're seeing as the right approaches here to adapt to cloud security environments.
And AI, it's so true that AI offers great opportunities, but it also, the more advanced it gets, the more of a threat it actually becomes.
Yep.
So when we talk about like the cloud, if we break it down and we look at, say, 4 domains, so endpoints, data, the cloud, sorry, and networks. So how can agencies address these 4 critical areas to try and beef up their cybersecurity?
Sure. Yeah, you're going to hear some consistent themes if I hit each of those. Zero trust architecture and zero trust principles is one of them that really cuts across all environments you just described. So focusing on continuous verification, continuous monitoring, least privilege access, and granular control. Those are going to be themes that are relevant in endpoint, in data, in cloud, and in network. Strategies like multi-factor authentication everywhere, encryption everywhere, microsegmentation, continuous monitoring, incident response, all those basics. The eating your vegetables of security also apply. Patching hygiene, vulnerability management, risk management. But if we take each one of these in turn, and we look at endpoints, so implementing continuous monitoring, well, what does that mean in this context? Understanding how to track activity, identify potential malicious or suspicious activity. It's about visibility and control. So making sure that the organization has a strong, very capable endpoint detection and response platform to allow for threat hunting that is not just an out of the box, one size fits all, but something that really can go the distance to really identify how an organization with sophisticated data needs is being attacked. Reducing the attack surface also through zero trust principles. A positive security model is a good example. Limiting the opportunity for an adversary to gain traction. So limiting and governing what software is allowed to run on endpoints is a very strong way of reducing the IT management burden while simultaneously depriving an adversary of an opportunity to live off the land, so to speak. So continuous verification, least privilege for all devices, those are great starting points for endpoints to make sure that in light of a move to cloud or a hybrid environment, that you're treating endpoints as a continual source of threats, because that's what they are. Lastly, on endpoints, I would say educated users. I mean, this is going to be an ever-present need. It is often the soft target that becomes the problem. So continuously educating users to recognize what is becoming more increasingly sophisticated attacks, recognizing phishing, spear phishing. The messages are getting better thanks to AI. It's getting harder to spot them, but that diligence is required. From a data perspective, really, this starts with treat data as fundamental. It's not an afterthought. It is the target. The data is the target. And so once you understand that, how do you govern it? Well, first you have to segment your data. And this doesn't just mean cataloging what you already have created, because data is being created so fast now at such volumes that it really needs to be a life cycle approach where you're ensuring that data is segmented, cataloged, tagged, and protected throughout its life cycle from creation to use to destruction. So then once you've segmented your data and have a good continual segmentation plan, making sure you have a robust data loss prevention policy that is tuned for your environment and that is truly doing prevention of unauthorized data exfiltration to thwart insider threats, to thwart outsider threats, privileged access that shouldn't be. That is a key area that as you're safeguarding data, you need a strong data prevention. And it's pretty logical there. Encrypting data both at rest and in motion is another factor to prevent unwanted and unauthorized access. So those are a few key strategies for data prevention, data loss prevention, and data protection. From a cloud perspective, once again, it's about visibility, control, limiting opportunity via zero trust principles. It's about investing in tools that give you that visibility and control in a cloud environment. CSPMs, CASB, to monitor and control the network traffic and configurations of cloud storage to avoid leaving the doors open, windows open, and leaving exposed storage buckets to prevent unauthorized access and data exfil. That's the goal. So you're going to hear me say it again, zero trust principles, sprinkle it everywhere, adopt zero trust thinking, where everything is a threat, continuous verification of users and devices, least privilege access, microsegmentation, just as important in cloud as it is anywhere else, more so even. Be wary of hidden cost escalations. Now, this is one we should talk about because the allure of go in with cloud everywhere was very strong. It allowed the elasticity of compute. It allowed for maybe getting out of having to own your own equipment and manage its life cycle. It offset some costs there, sure. It offered some access and availability benefits. However, the dark side of it is as you begin to develop more and more data and generate more and more data and have to store more and more data, the costs, the hidden cost escalations, and the estimates that organizations have made on what public cloud is going to cost them start to to grow well beyond their expectations, and they can dramatically increase the total cost of operation over time. So that hidden costs piece is certainly a concern of folks operating cloud environments as to what to expect and how to manage that. Okay, so that's we've hit endpoints, we've hit data, we've hit cloud. You asked for network as well. So from a network standpoint, you guessed it, zero trust architecture is important, as well as network microsegmentation and network segmentation. So isolating sensitive systems so that lateral movement of attackers and threats is prevented, and you're safeguarding your most sensitive data. So deploying secure gateways to manage the network traffic and make sure that there's a continuous verification of network traffic that requires verification that allows for users and devices to be managed properly, these privileged access management, granular control over the network, et cetera. So enrich that with threat intelligence is the last piece of the network element. Feeding identity information, understanding how users behave, and overlaying that with the ability to use threat information to identify and respond to known and emerging threats. And there's a more is more approach to threat intelligence as long as you're using that data effectively. That's where interoperability is important for threat intel. And the tools you use should be able to ingest additional threat feeds. That's another factor. So again, key considerations to summarize all four of these control planes. Zero trust maturity model. It's important to make sure that in cloud, you're implementing zero trust controls. Continuous monitoring. This is a rapidly emerging environment. Continuously pulling information and cataloging and having advanced visibility into the activity in these systems is very important for identifying potential security incidents.
When you run through, all the different important components of cybersecurity, so many of them seem like common sense,
Yeah,
and many of them are, but that still doesn't make them any less of a challenge.
totally right. And the last one I was going to say is incident response. You got to have a plan to quickly contain and mitigate threats. And that really rounds out, that topic. I mean, there's a lot to it. As you can see, that complexity to solve a problem, you create a lot of more complexity, which creates more problems, which.
So talk to me about data repatriation. So first of all, what is it? And
Yep.
why is it such a big deal?
Yeah, all those costs I mentioned, that's certainly a theme where organizations who adopted a cloud first approach and then are now pivoting to a cloud smart approach. There's a bit of an ouch my wallet factor here. I'll get into that. But data repatriation is the process of moving data and applications back from a cloud environment back to on-prem infrastructure or a private cloud. So essentially, it's a reverse migration. Organizations have pulled data and workloads back from in-house after initially hosting them on a cloud by a cloud service provider. The reasons for that factors including cost optimization, security concerns, flexibility, needing to tailor how data is managed across the environment. And so let's hit the big one. The number one reason why we see data repatriation is cost. Public cloud services can be expensive, especially when dealing with large data sets, complex workloads. Repatriation can often lead to significant savings, avoiding storage fees, owning versus renting. There's a tipping point where data sets that are large and you're paying to store them on top of subscription fees, the cost of bringing them back in-house, as well as some of the security control reasons why you might want to do that and take control of sovereign data, is a strong reason, is the strongest reason why we see repatriation. We see agencies looking at, okay, I'm going to pull this back. The bill for Azure is getting too high. Let's look at what the cost would be if we put this back into an operation that's a private cloud or a colo or in a sovereign data center. So on-prem infrastructure can also offer more control over resource allocation and storage, which can also lead to cost optimization. The other factor is security. So the security of the data, in certain cases, mission data and sensitive data, agencies are finding that leaving it exposed when we've seen CSP outages, we've seen SaaS applications drop, take down operating systems. We've seen enough to know there are certain cases where you don't necessarily want to leave sensitive data or rely on operations that are beyond your control. That enhanced security consideration is certainly a factor in why organizations are bringing, back data and workloads into their own control to tailor their security posture. There's compliance drivers, again, controlling the storage and how and where the data resides, greater flexibility in terms of hybrid. In some cases, you'll want to have some workloads in the cloud, you want some on-prem, maybe you've got some air-gapped environments that need to be managed. So being able to tailor the security capabilities to all of these environments is a key consideration so that you don't have gaps exposed. And then in some cases, it's purely latency. Yeah, some very high performance across applications requiring real-time analytics, in medical and energy or financial processing. Cloud is just not going to be fast enough. It's not cost effective to get it fast enough than it is owning the infrastructure in your own data center. So we're also seeing that. So long answer, but we're seeing a lot of reasons.
That's really interesting because, yeah, the whole idea of repatriation of your data is something that, it's just a very interesting, instead of, uploading to essentially to the cloud, it's, going the other direction. So
Mhm.
Broadcom and Symantec can help government agencies in a lot of ways. So specifically, talking like our conversation today, how can they help agencies secure their cloud infrastructure?
Yeah, I mentioned it takes a holistic approach to security. It's doing the hard work right. That's part of it by offering better visibility, better control, and more flexibility of where you need to operate and tailor security controls to go there. So Broadcom, Symantec, and Carbon Black solutions help government agencies with data repatriation by giving them strong capabilities to have that visibility that's necessary across network, endpoint, cloud, and the data to have the right security controls, visibility, governance, incident response to help organizations, whether they're in the cloud, whether they're repatriating to their own data centers, whether they're standing up private cloud and taking advantage of some of the cost savings and better TCO that we're seeing in private cloud than we're seeing in public cloud. Another key factor here is as you consider the data again as the target, um, security in transit is very important during repatriation. So following the data, as the data is moving, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for attackers. So making sure you have the right data loss prevention controls, that things don't go missing in transit, that we don't have breaches during data repatriation. Another key is deployment choice. I mentioned that the end state, I think the industry largely agrees, is not going to be cloud. It's not going to be on-prem. It's going to be hybrid. It'll be some private cloud, some public cloud, and across that spectrum, having capabilities that can be with you in air-gapped, can be suitable to provide visibility and control in those environments, or public cloud or private cloud or traditional data center hosted systems or endpoints that are traditional. That is a factor. That flexibility and span of capability is also something that Broadcom believes very strongly is going to be a requirement.
Can you share a case study or a use case that explains what's possible?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, we're seeing more and more agencies asking about data repatriation and beginning to undertake it in areas of their operation. So, without naming names, we're certainly working with agencies that are feeling the pain of cost overruns for cloud storage. They're pivoting from cloud first to cloud smart is a simple way to put it, right? They're recognizing that not everywhere in the operation is going to be an efficient play in public cloud, and we're helping them address control gaps and visibility gaps in preparation for and during their repatriation efforts. Talking about those cost overruns, I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, federal agencies have faced criticism for this. Cloud spending that has significantly exceeded initial estimates. It's hard to pin the tail on this. It really is. The data explosion that we're seeing with advanced applications and with moving services to cloud, that comes with a cost. Everything that is being generated is being stored, and you're renting that storage. Again, the tipping point starts to hurt. Agencies are facing some scrutiny over transparency and oversight, and lack of adequate oversight or estimations on their costs of public cloud. So the mounting costs of renting storage from CSPs is a growing concern over cost efficiency of the operation. And is it really developing a value proposition? Is it delivering a value proposition that is suitable for the spend? So agency approaches to cloud migration it's a topic of serious debate. Some argue that the cloud first strategy was a bit reckless. I think it was a little bit short-sighted in the cost estimates. They were a bit lured in by what seemed like upfront values, but over time they will have to sharpen the calculus on hybrid. So public cloud has its place, private cloud has its place, colo has its place, sovereign data centers have their place, and air-gapped has its place. It's about sharpening the calculus on what's appropriate where, based on impact, agency mission, the sensitivity of the data, et cetera.
We give you special opportunity now. You get to leave our audience with two takeaways. So what two things would you like people to walk away from this conversation knowing?
Yep, sure. Thanks for inviting me on that one. The key is choosing wisely. Consider the escalating cost of renting versus owning. It's hard to estimate, but look at the trajectory and expect exponential growth of data. What do you need? Is it going to be reasonable for each operation? Look at any given IT application or workload. Does it make sense for this to be public cloud, or does it make sense for this to be repatriated? The mission objectives and requirements should drive IT decision making. That's the second one. And that's sensitivity of the data, the volume of the data, cost projections, command and control of the data. It's going to take the same level of security and sensitivity to the mission regardless of what environment you host. Don't let your guard down. Cloud is not the cure-all or panacea to solve all vulnerabilities, and it's not really proving to be a free lunch on cost savings. So the risk of exposure for a false sense of security in the gaps between what a CSP provides and what an agency has to provide are real. And so planning accordingly is key. And there are capabilities to help for repatriation, like what we are offering to agencies today. I think this is a very interesting and emerging topic. Been fun exploring it with you. It is, again, it's a pendulum swing that we're seeing, and the need for flexible solutions is important now more than ever, but we can't ignore the basics, and Zero Trust is here to stay.
Thank you so much for joining me, Garrett. I really appreciate our conversation, and I learned several things about cybersecurity and data in the cloud, and I'm sure everybody else did too. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.